ربنا أعلاك قدرا يا إمام الأنبياء أنت في الوجدان حي أنت للعينين ضي أنت عند الحوض ري أنت هاد وصف.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to Know Your Charity. My name is Faraz Patel. We'd like to thank you, the viewer, for staying with us. On March the 30th, the Islamic Medical Association will host their live pledge line here on Hilaal TV. It's an organization that has been around for many decades and has helped enhance the medical fraternity amongst Muslims here in South Africa. And joining us now to look ahead to that pledge, I'd like to welcome a familiar face here on Hilaal TV, Dr. Solly Suleiman, who serves as the chairperson of IMA. Dr. Suleiman, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and jazakallah so much for joining us.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thanks for having us. I'm a pharmacist, not a doctor, and I'm not the chairperson of IMA. I'm the chairperson of the IMA Baitul Noor Trust.
Shukran, jazakallah so much for correcting me on that, Dr. Suleiman. Dr. Suleiman, when we look at, obviously the, the foundations of Islamic Medical Association, I mean, talk to us about it. Talk to us about how important it was to form such an organization.
Yeah, over 40 some odd years ago, a few of our doctors decided to get together on a voluntary basis and provide medical care to disadvantaged patients in certain areas. For example, Marion Hill, Malagasy, and down on the south coast of Bremer. So these were voluntary, and that's where the roots of the IMA began. It was doctors like Dr. Ghulam Hussain and Dr. Mohammed Khan and Dr. Hanif Khatri, Dr. Mohammed Mayed that decided to form the organization. Unfortunately, at that time, it was actually, there were much objections to it because it was assumed that it's going to create a lot of sectionalism, but it was not the case. The focus of the IMA was twofold, effectively, two pillars. The one pillar was on the focus on the members and how one could benefit the members. And the second pillar was really how do we benefit the community, and that's where it started almost over 40 years ago.
Mr. Suleiman, and I mean, the medical fraternity amongst Muslims, it's grown, hasn't it? And an organization like IMA really creates a bond in terms of having that network of doctors.
Yeah, and just to mention, it's one of the unique organizations, although it's called Islamic Medical Association of South Africa. It's open to all health professionals. For example, I'm a pharmacist. You've got the chairperson of the Durban branch. He's an optometrist. So, and of course, you've got doctors around the country. So it's one of those organizations that incorporate all healthcare professionals. And that's the uniqueness about this organization. So we all get together. There's thousands and thousands of health professionals, Muslim health professionals around the country. And, many of them are not part of the IMA, which is a sad situation. It would be great if every single health professional could be a member of the organization, because it strengthens the organization and allows it to provide far more to the members as well as to the community that we serve.
Mr. Suleiman, your journey of being part of IMA South Africa, talk to us about that. And of course, you've been one of the driving forces of IMA. So, talk to us about really your contribution towards it, and of course the role you've played, in giving your expertise and knowledge to this organization.
Yeah, I think the most important thing has been, guidance from the Almighty to basically deliver on many, many different projects. And alhamdulillah, we're able to do that because we do these projects for the pleasure of the Almighty and benefit of the community. It's so important that we make a difference, and I think that's been my motto all along. The focus is on how do I make a difference, and of course, how does the organization make a difference? And that's how the journey started. When I first was approached about 40 some odd years, almost 35 to 40 years ago, by Dr. Ghulam Hussain, Dr. Hanif Khatri, Dr. Mohammed Mayed, And one of the things they said, is that you join the IMA and you benefit in the Akhirah. Now that needs to be seen, but seen to be believed. But at the end of the day, that was how it started. And of course, when I spoke to them at that point, I said, Inshallah, as we always do, we say Inshallah when we don't want to do something. But they insisted that I then persisted on me joining the organization. So long time ago, it's like a virus. When you join when you're infected with a virus, sometimes some of these viruses are incurable. So
I like the play on words. I like the play on words, Mr. Suleiman, because it's a virus in a more positive way rather than one in a negative way, which obviously, individuals within your fraternity generally deal with. Talking about viruses.
So that was where it started, and the passion and the desire to benefit and help communities have been there with me as part of my life. I divide my life into about 3 different parts. One is family and for myself, and of course, the second part is the business, and the third part is the community and the organizations I serve.
Mr. Suleiman, let's talk about, obviously, I was going to touch on viruses, but in a negative way. Of course, South Africa has been dealt with so much. We talk HIV/AIDS, we talk tuberculosis, and so much more. Within these, within those challenging times, or with these epidemics that have braced us, and I'll touch on COVID-19 in a bit, what role has IMASA played in assisting the medical fraternity from a broader level, from expertise and knowledge?
Yeah. So during the COVID pandemic, the IMA played a very important role in advising and supporting the various initiatives. I know we constantly provided the advice and guidance with the whole team. We had a COVID professional team that basically looked at the vaccines, looked at the various treatment modules, how to basically treat the virus, how to use different types of medication and treatment modules as such. So it played a very important role. It played a very important role in a number of things as IMA. So as I said, there's 2 pillars. One is the pillar of how do you benefit members, and when we benefit members, we basically, this is one of the ways. There was always something or other going out to the membership to ensure that they are well advised and guided as such. So this is what the IMA is. But for example, now there was an issue with the Department of Health regarding scarves, and this basically came out with the ruling that scarves were not allowed. And the IMA wrote to the Department of Health, wrote to the Minister, wrote to the DG, and requested them to basically remove that clause, because Muslim health professionals need to, women have to use the scarves. And, there was some nonsensical reason for that, is that different scarves will not be part of the uniform. And then it was indicated that you give an idea what color of the scarf, what color the scarf needs to be. So these are many things that we involve in. But the thing is, for example, there's rulings on advice on organ transplants and blood transfusion, and whether you should take injections in Ramadan. So these are some of the things. We have our radio programs, TV programs. Basically, all these are educational programs, that we host. So that's the one pillar. For example, that pillar also, for membership, we basically have conventions. We have CMEs. We also basically have orientation program for new students. We have graduation programs for students that are qualifying and that type of thing.
After the break, I continue my conversation with Mr. Salih Suleiman. We're going to be looking ahead to their live pledge line on Saturday, the 30th of March.
أنت عند الحوض ري أنت هاد وصفي أنت عند الحوض ري أنت هاد وصفي.
Welcome back to Know Your Charity. I'm in conversation with Mr. Salih Suleiman from the Islamic Medical Association of South Africa. They are having a live pledge line that is going to be occurring on Saturday, the 30th of March at 9:30. Mr. Suleiman, Jazakallah so much for staying with us. I think both you and I recognize that in South Africa, there's various challenges within the healthcare sector, pre-democracy and even post-democracy. How has IMA played its role in really contributing towards health in a broader sense within South Africa?
Yeah, the unfortunate scenario is that over the last 25 to 30 years, the hospital and the clinics have actually gone downhill very fast, unfortunately. And it's meant that organizations like ours have to kind of step in and take control of the slack or take control of the deficiencies in the system. For example, with regard to cataracts, and there's over 2 years of waiting list in most of these hospitals. So we do our cataract programs both in Johannesburg, in the Northwest, as well as in Durban, to just help the state alleviate the backlog. That's a tragedy of what went on in the last 2 or 3 decades. When we we're discussing the issue of whether we should continue the clinics in 1994, we assume that within a few years we'll have to close up those clinics because the Department of Health will effectively take control of the healthcare needs of the patients and the disadvantaged communities in the various areas. But 30 years down the line, we still have these clinics. We have 4 fixed clinics and a mobile clinic that we have to provide to ensure that patients get quality healthcare. These clinics are run by nursing practitioners and overseen by doctors. On the other hand, when it comes to renal dialysis now, the tragedy is that patients are sent home to die if they are not viable subjects, if you want to call it that. Now, when you say viable subject, that means they're not eligible for kidney transplants, and they've got many predisposed conditions that compromise their health. So they're sort of not regarded as someone that the state will waste their time investing in. So we actually have to take the slack. So they're really sent home to die. They could die a slow death, basically, with the fluid and toxin accumulation. And we basically take that slack, and we've got a program that we run for the last 17 years across the country. We've got patients that we take care of in Johannesburg, in Port Elizabeth, in Escort, in Ladysmith, and in Cape Town. There's over 77 patients that we take care of nationally, and that's obviously what we can afford to take care of. It depends on the contributions from society, from members as well as from the society as a whole. So we have, and then we've got the second part of this is we've got the renal unit set up in Durban, and the renal unit has over 70 patients. Of those 70 patients, over 40 are paid for by the IMA. And the balance, obviously, are private patients, patients that can afford care. So that kind of, one of the things that we tend to do as the IMA, we tend to kind of have a self-sustaining model. So the renal unit is run in a manner that all the profits from there basically recycled and used to fund the future patients. There's 2 parts of the renal unit. One is that we have a renal program. That is, we have one that's we pay for the patient's initial dialysis, first 12 months. If you basically put them onto medical aid, if you enroll them into medical aid, their first 12 months it's an exclusion. So we have to pay towards this renal dialysis for the first 12 months, and we pay for their medical aids. Now, when you do that, you basically cost over 240,000 just for the dialysis, and another 60 to 80,000 medical aid contribution. So that's over 300,000 per patient per annum, which is huge. This, even if you're a middle income earner, you're never going to be able to afford dialysis. And then before that, we have to provide access to the patients for dialysis. In other words, we have to allow them to insert the catheter. So that basically is costing around 25 to 30,000. So it's an expensive business, but at the end of the day, it's not our job to basically decide whether the patient should go home and die. It's our our right to basically intervene and help them lead a comfortable, quality life. And I think this is what we do with renal dialysis as such. And then we've got other projects as well.
Mr. Suleiman, and that brings to the next question, of course, looking ahead to that pledge line and, what this means for IMA to try and raise those funds to assist many patients with various chronic illnesses and other illnesses. Talk to us about what the viewer who is going to be tuning in to that live pledge line can help contribute towards.
Okay, so the two major projects that we need funding for, historically we've never really needed to go out to the pledge lines and never needed to really go out to the community because the community came to us. So right up to last year, our funds were, really rolled in very easily. Now this year we find there's a struggle to raise the funds because we seem to have, there's a lot of money obviously going out to Gaza basically. So that's a challenge for the community in South Africa. So we have a budget of almost 4.2 million just on the patients that we have on renal dialysis. So it means over 4 million rands per annum. That's without taking on new patients. So we've got that to achieve, and we're not even, 25% of our target. And then the second major project, we've got our frail care. Now, the frail care takes care of about 16 residents. Now, when I say frail care, it's really assisted care where patients can't take care of their own needs, and the parents and families, not parents, but families and the children can't take care of them, and they need them to be admitted to a specialized facility, which we have, where they're taken care of from a feeding, from a bathing, from a dressing, medication, and activity point of view. So we take care of these patients, and the budget for that, for the next, basically the budget for that is over 2 million rands per annum. Historically, we had fewer patients. I mean, last year we had about, started off with 2 patients and eventually it went up to 16. So some of them can't afford to pay for it, and others can contribute some of it. So a large percentage of these residents of the frail care really, historically disadvantaged, and they cannot be taken care of. So we have to take care of these patients. So between these two projects, we've got almost 6 million rand that we need to raise. And we basically at about 1/3 of that. And of course, that's excluding the cataract and gift of sight program, as well as the program that we have. We basically have the health sciences bursary fund, as well as our Baitul Noor project, which is a social welfare wing of ours, where we have counseling and AIDS projects and care for the elderly. So our total budget that we require is at the region of about 8 million rands. We're kind of far from that. So we're hoping that the viewers will basically open their hearts and open their purses and give generously on Saturday the 30th, when we have the pledge line at 9:30 in the evening. So it's the first time we bring this. It's a pilot, and we're hoping that we can raise the funds.
Mr. Suleiman, before we wrap up this conversation, of course, last year, us at Hilaal covered the conference of the Islamic Medical Association in Johannesburg. There's been many more before that. How do conferences like this, really build towards a sustainable future for the organization?
Yeah, basically last year we had it in September. This year it's going to be held in Cape Town on the 10th and 11th of August. 10th and 11th of August. And it really brings together its members and the spouses and the children together. And it's community and family this year. That's the theme of the conference. And we're hoping that it's well supported by the health professionals, and not restricted to Muslim health professionals. Anyone can join the convention, and it provides a certain number of CME points, CPD points effectively. So we're hoping that Hilaal TV supports that this year as well. And I think it's so important because we bring people together, they network, they interact with each other. It's like a family. And we're hoping that we can actually get many, many more health professionals to join the organization, because it's not about what the organization can do for you. It's really what you can do for the community via the organization. It's just a vehicle that can be used optimally. And we hope that many of our community members now open their hearts and purses on the 30th of March, on our pledge line.
Inshallah, Ameen. Mr. Suleiman, we wish you all the best ahead of that pledge line. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it a successful one. Inshallah, Ameen. Jazakallah so much for joining us. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
It's Mr. Salih Suleiman, who is part of the Islamic Medical Association, looking ahead to their live pledge line on Saturday, the 30th of March. From myself, Faraz Patel, and the rest of the team here, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
نور الله فجرا جئت بعد العسر يسرا ربنا أعلاك قدرا يا إمام الأنبياء أنت في الوجدان حي أنت لله